I am old now. The scales on my hands have dulled to a gray that once gleamed bronze under the suns of a dozen conquered worlds. The metals on my chest have lost their luster, but the memories they represent never fade. I have fought in every major campaign of the Threx Dominion. I have led legions across galaxies. I have seen the rise and fall of species that thought themselves eternal. And yet, nothing haunts me more than the sight of a human smile on the battlefield. They call me General Vorthkarin. In my time, I was a name spoken with pride among my people and fear among our enemies. We, the Threx, were bred for conquest, logical, disciplined, united under a single code, dominance through order. We did not wage wars of passion. We waged wars of efficiency. Every move calculated, every loss weighed. There was no emotion, no chaos. Victory was a formula. And then humanity arrived and shattered every rule we knew. It began as a routine containment order. Our exploration fleets had detected electromagnetic patterns from a backwater system on the outer rim. The Council of Nine, our interstellar governing alliance, determined the source, a young species broadcasting uncontrolled signals into space. They called themselves humans. Primitive bipeds, carbon-based, reckless in design and temperament. They were a curiosity, nothing more. But the Council feared contagion, not biological but ideological. They had seen such species before, ones too emotional, too volatile, too dangerous to the delicate stability of the galaxy. Containment was the answer. Subjugate or isolate them before they could spread. And the task fell to us, the Threx Dominion, the galaxy's perfect soldiers. I still remember the Council briefing. They spoke of humans as if they were insects, aggressive, short-lived, self-destructive. They fought each other constantly, poisoning their planet, fragmenting into countless nations. They will destroy themselves before they reach the stars, one counselor said. We are only ensuring what nature already intends. We all agreed the humans would be easy, a single campaign, no resistance worth the name. How naive we were. Our first fleet entered their system quietly. The blue planet shimmered with oceans and clouds, innocent in its stillness. We jammed their satellites, disrupted their communications, prepared for orbital pacification, the usual procedure. Our ships darkened their skies. Cities looked up in confusion. We began targeted strikes, surgical and precise. The first day went exactly as planned. Their military scrambled, but their technology was centuries behind ours. We laughed in our war rooms, confident this would end before it began. Then came the second day. Our command frigate monitoring the southern hemisphere reported a strange anomaly, multiple explosions, not ours. Human bases were detonating themselves. Their commanders ordered total scuttling of resources to prevent capture. Entire battalions stayed behind to lure us into traps, detonating when our forces approached. The first casualty reports shocked us. Threx soldiers reduced to atoms because humans refused surrender. That was not in the projections. It made no sense. They were supposed to value survival above all else. But they fought like they didn't care if they lived. At first, we dismissed it as primitive panic. But the pattern continued. Every position we took was costly. They would hide among ruins, strike from shadows, use their own dying to buy seconds of advantage. It was grotesque, inefficient, suicidal, and devastatingly effective. Their chaos became strategy. Their desperation became art. They didn't fight for victory. They fought to make us pay for every inch. I was stationed in orbit when I saw the first major human counterstrike. Our sensors picked up hundreds of small vessels, leaving their atmosphere, many not even armed. We assumed they were refugees. Our fleet ignored them, and then they rammed us. Dozens of those makeshift crafts crashed into our ships, detonating nuclear devices salvaged from their own weapons. They sacrificed their pilots willingly. The shock wave crippled half our formation. I remember the voice of one of my aides, trembling as he whispered, "They're not soldiers, they're lunatics." But I saw it differently. I saw something primal, something pure. They were not fighting for empire or wealth. They fought because their extinction was unacceptable. We withdrew temporarily to regroup. I spent long hours reviewing human communications we had intercepted. Their networks, though crude, were filled with messages of defiance, humor, even jokes about our invasion. They mocked us while burning. Soldiers wrote farewell letters to families with calm acceptance. Civilians volunteered for suicide missions with no hesitation. In all my campaigns, I had never seen such emotional endurance. We thought emotions made species weak. But humans turn emotion into a weapon. When we finally captured prisoners, I volunteered to interrogate them. I wanted to understand. One human officer, a woman with torn uniform and blood on her face, stared at me through a containment field. She said nothing for hours. Finally, I asked, "Why do you fight when you cannot win?" Her lips curled into a faint smile. "Because if we stop," she said, "we deserve to lose." I felt an unfamiliar sensation in my chest then, not fear, not respect, but both. It unsettled me. Days later, her prison transport exploded during transfer. She and her comrades had smuggled in fragments of their own bones sharpened into blades. They slaughtered their guards and blew themselves up to destroy the ship's reactor. They died singing one of their Earth songs. My subordinates called them insane. I called them terrifying. Our council increased the offensive. They authorized orbital cleansing. If humanity could not be pacified, they would be erased. I led the second invasion myself. I told myself it was duty, not vengeance, that guided my hand. But deep down, I wanted to see them again, to prove that fear was an illusion. I was wrong again. As we descended on their northern continent, our sensors went dark. They had learned to jam us using their own atmosphere. Our navigation failed. They had reverse-engineered fragments of our technology in weeks. Weeks. I landed with the first wave in a ruined human city. The air stank of smoke and iron. The streets were empty, but we could feel eyes everywhere. They didn't fight us openly anymore. They whispered through the ruins, waited until our backs were turned. Explosives hidden in toys. Razor wire in doorways. Snipers firing from hospitals. They weaponized morality itself, knowing we hesitated where civilians once stood. My troops began to crumble. One screamed after finding the words, "W. Remember," painted in blood across a wall. We started to understand that we weren't fighting an army. We were fighting an idea. Every report brought more dread. Entire units gone missing without battle logs. Ships vanishing from orbit. When we recovered black boxes, the recordings were filled with human broadcasts. Music, laughter, recordings of children's voices. Psychological warfare that broke the strongest among us. Some of our soldiers took their own lives rather than return to the field. I sent countless for reconditioning, but nothing worked. Humanity had infected us, not biologically, but spiritually. The Council called it Operation Glass Earth. The goal was finality. No more half measures, no more restraint. They told us to burn the infection from the galaxy. I obeyed, as I always had, but the order felt different this time. It was not duty that drove me, it was dread. We were not fighting a species anymore. We were fighting inevitability. When the first bombardment began, I thought it would end quickly. I thought humans would break as others had. I was wrong. The moment we set the sky ablaze, they learned to fight in the dark. They built networks underground, vast and invisible. Every destroyed city became a fortress below the ashes. We tried to flush them out with radiation, fire, and sound. They adapted faster than any species I have ever seen. They learned our frequencies, hijacked our drones, and used them to spy on us. Within weeks, our fleets were being outmaneuvered by soldiers who used stolen alien tech they barely understood, but used with terrifying effectiveness. Every strike we made was answered in kind. We turned the world into glass. They turned it into a mirror that reflected our own horror. I remember standing in what was once a human metropolis. We had won, technically. The city was dust. Yet, even in ruin, humanity was everywhere. On cracked walls, scrawled in soot and blood, were words my translator rendered as, "We are still here." Those 4 words echoed through me like a curse. We captured a few survivors, mostly children, and I ordered them treated humanely, but my subordinates laughed. They said mercy was wasted. They were wrong. Mercy was the only thing that kept me sane in those days. Our analysts began studying their communications. We discovered that humans were no longer broadcasting distress. They were coordinating. Every continent, every surviving colony, connected through code, pulse, and song. Their leaders were gone, their nations gone, but they had become collective. It was not a government. It was instinct. They had turned survival into religion. They no longer needed command structures. They had belief, and that belief was simple, never stop. That was their weapon. That was what terrified us. One night, I received a report from a planetary forward base. It was gone. Entire divisions vanished. No distress signal, no survivors. The reconnaissance drone sent to investigate returned footage that haunted me. The base was intact, undamaged. But every soldier was dead, their bodies seated upright at their stations, weapons in hand, expressions calm. On the walls, written in their own blood, were human words we barely translated. They learned patience. I realized then that humans had taught us what fear truly was. Fear was silence where there should be chaos. They began using our own technology against us in ways that defied logic. Their engineers, what few remained, crafted weapons from our wreckage. They reprogrammed orbital drones to target our ships. They infected our command systems with viruses that mimicked our own encryption. When we thought we were sending orders, we were sending death to ourselves. It was genius, and it was madness, and I admired them for it even as we bled. The Council demanded results. I delivered numbers, not victories. They ordered me to increase pressure, to make examples. I warned them that brutality would only feed humanity's resolve. They ignored me. They always did. So we executed prisoners. We burned settlements. We did everything we once swore we would never do. And for every atrocity we committed, humans answered tenfold. They began targeting our psychology. Broadcasts of captured threats, officers begging for mercy, manipulated or real, spread across our networks. Rumors that humans had developed weapons to kill through emotion spread among our ranks. Soldiers saw faces in the dark, heard voices in static. The line between nightmare and war disappeared. I interrogated another human once, a pilot captured after a raid. He was missing an arm, his eyes hollow yet alive. When I asked what drove them, he laughed, a dry, broken sound. "You still don't get it," he said. "You think this is about winning. We're not fighting to win. We're fighting to matter." That sentence carved itself into me. It explained everything. Humans could not be conquered because they didn't fight for power or territory. They fought to prove they existed, and existence was something no one could strip away. Our fleets began fracturing. Morale was non-existent. Some officers refused to engage unless directly threatened. Entire ships fled. The humans exploited it with terrifying precision. They launched decoy transmissions of distress calls from our fleets, tricking reinforcements into ambushes. They disguised their fighters as debris. They boarded our ships using improvised stealth pods built from metal scrap and stolen energy cores. When we tried to adapt, they already had. They learned us faster than we learned them. One of our outposts sent a distress signal from the northern pole. When we arrived, the outpost was gone, but its communications array remained operational. We accessed its data and found continuous playback of human music. Simple, rhythmic, beautiful. My translator described the lyrics as a promise. "We'll find you in the dark." My second-in-command collapsed to his knees. He said he could hear words in the melody that weren't there. That night, he took his own life. I did not report it. The war was no longer about territory. It was about endurance. We fought ghosts. We destroyed one city. They built 5 more beneath it. We bombed the surface. They attacked from orbit. We took orbit. They struck our supply lines in deep space. They adapted faster than our simulations could predict. The Council accused me of exaggeration. They said humans were limited, mortal, fragile. I said fragility was their strength. It made them reckless, creative, unstoppable. They laughed at me. They said fear had made me soft. Maybe it had. Maybe I had simply learned the truth too late. The breaking point came during the siege of Meridian. It was supposed to be the final strike, a coordinated attack on the last human command center. We surrounded them from orbit, deployed atmospheric disruptors, and began bombardment. They responded not with retreat, but with fire. They detonated their own fusion cores, burning their own defenses to prevent capture. The explosion destroyed half our fleet. They burned themselves alive rather than let us win. Our sensors detected faint transmissions even as their planet burned. Messages, songs, instructions, rallying cries. They were already rebuilding before the ashes cooled. I walked through the aftermath personally. Bodies everywhere, human and Threx alike. The air still glowed with radiation. I found one human soldier still breathing, impaled by debris. I approached cautiously. He looked at me, eyes unfocused, lips cracked. "Are you afraid of us?" he whispered. I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell him no. Instead, I said yes. He smiled and closed his eyes. That smile has never left me. After Meridian, I was no longer a general. I was a ghost in armor, a leader of shadows. My soldiers followed me out of habit, not loyalty. We fought without purpose. The humans had changed the war into something spiritual. They fought not just to survive, but to transform. They forced us to see what we had become: cold, mechanical, dead inside. They were chaos, but they were alive. And that life was spreading.